This is the Let's Go Win podcast with your host, J.M. Ryerson.
What is happening, you guys? Welcome back to the Let's Go Win podcast. I have a very, very successful young lady that's on the podcast today. She is bringing a lot of love to the world. Dashama is an award-winning author, speaker, and founder of the Flow State Institute. Dashama was ordained as a priestess of the Rose lineage in 2010 and has traveled the world extensively for almost 2 decades, speaking, filming, and leading transformational healing retreats and flow state yoga teacher trainings. Her online video training courses have impacted millions of students and have been featured on QVC, ABC News, in WSJ, Vogue, Cosmo, and magazine covers, and many other publications worldwide. Dashama, you have been busy. How are you today?
I'm great. Thank you so much for having me. How are you doing?
I'm doing amazing. I look, you're talking about, I'm not a yogi. I definitely do yoga once a week and I meditate every day. And I know you're experts at both of these subjects. So I'm going to geek out with you, which is awesome. But why don't you tell me kind of how did you've taken, I guess, this Eastern discipline and you've really brought it to the forefront, it sounds like, throughout a lot of the West and I'm sure parts of the world of the East as well. So tell me your journey.
Well, it's been an interesting journey. I actually, if you believe in many lifetimes, I do think this is probably not my first lifetime in these realms, but in this lifetime, my parents were into yoga and meditation. My father met Swami, I think Muktananda in New York in the 70s. And so when I was a little kid, we got introduced to yoga and meditation. But then when I was 7, my mother lost her mind. She was combining alcohol and drugs. It's a really bad combination. And she developed schizophrenia. And so we ended up being raised in foster homes. So it was a very interesting contrast being introduced to the conscious path, but then the contrast of so many people who have inner traumas that try to heal themselves through drugs and alcohol, especially in the 70s and 80s. And anyway, it just went really bad for her and for my father. So anyway, I see it as a blessing. Like, it led me to my path. Years later, I returned to the path of yoga and meditation to heal my own inner child traumas and the different things that had happened to me since I was 7. And then what happened was, when I was 18 years old, I was riding my bicycle and I got hit by a car. The car was going 45 miles per hour. Actually, it was in West Palm Beach on Okeechobee. It's a big highway. Anyway, and it ended up leading me to get scoliosis of my spine. And the doctors told me there's really nothing you can do about that. You can go to chiropractic, but that you can't heal scoliosis. And I'm one of those type of people that I don't really ever believe when people tell me there's nothing you can do. So luckily, a few years later, I was introduced to a yoga teacher, and she told me she had healed her spine with yoga. And it was just her having one person. Oh, that's all I needed. One person having done it. I said, I can do that too. And I was going through a lot of other difficulties at the time, a big breakup. I went through a depression. It was like a lot of things hitting me at once. And I was just guided to go to a yoga teacher training in 2005, 17 years ago. And it changed my life dramatically. And it was so healing. It was just like, I just wanted to share this medicine with the world. I was like, everyone needs to know about this. And it wasn't really my intention to teach yoga, honestly. I just wanted to share the power of that. And then what happened was, it just, like, the universe supported that. And then I ended up getting, like, this client of mine. He was a marketing expert and a rabbi in Boca. And he actually launched my YouTube channel in 2006, which was like before anyone else was on YouTube, you know? And then I got introduced to the idea of a 30-day challenge. And I did the first ever online yoga challenge, 30-day yoga challenge in 2008, which went viral. It reached millions of people on YouTube and actually started a global trend of yoga challenges, which eventually I think led to one of the things that made yoga mainstream. And so that was all coming from this deep, intention of just how do I serve? How do I help people with this amazing medicine that's available to us? So that's kind of like a little synopsis of the beginning of the journey, how that got started.
Yeah, that is fascinating. So you have this background and then it goes away, or doesn't go away necessarily, I guess, but then it has clearly shaped your life moving forward. You're helping so many others. What if I'm listening to this and I'm like, okay, I've done yoga, but what would you tell people about, let's just focus on yoga for a moment, because obviously yoga and meditation, you don't have to do them both. I think they're both pretty beneficial, but what would you tell somebody listening for the first time? Like, why should I do yoga? What about it is going to be beneficial? Because I think we've seen it, but what does it do for people? You talked about healing and trauma. So what can somebody really take from just starting their practice?
That's a great question. First, I just want to, for anybody who's listening that perhaps isn't very familiar with yoga actually is thousands of year old. They say it's somewhere between 5,000 and 10,000 year old science, and so it has been proven over history. But the beautiful thing about the science of yoga is that it's also recently, in the last 50 to 100 years, had a lot of scientific research. So I work with doctors from Harvard, Georgetown, Stanford, and they've done research with MRI brain scans that show how yoga, and when I say yoga, it includes meditation, because yoga is actually a path that includes not just the poses of yoga, which is what most people think. They think of these poses, but it includes the yoga, the poses, but that's the physical practice. But then it includes meditation, it includes breath work, it includes mindfulness, awareness of your life, your actions. There's even a whole part of the path that has 8 limbs. It's basically how to be a good person, because everyone needs to learn that, and nobody's being taught some reason. I don't know why, but basically, it's kind of like the 10 commandments of the Bible, but from a yogic perspective. So, like non-violence, there's a word for that in yoga. It's called ahimsa, and so I really believe everyone needs to learn yoga. And when I say yoga, it's not just the poses, it's the whole path of yoga. How to be a good person, non-violence to yourself and to others, cleanliness. That's another one. These are just like basic principles in yoga, but they're not being taught on the mass scale at home, in homes, in schools yet. But that's our mission, and I'll get to that a little bit later. But just in terms of what kind of benefits can people get from yoga, one of the things that I have seen that is so profound is the body's natural ability to heal itself. And what yoga does is it just brings you into the present moment, and so that your body can be introduced to what it feels like to be whole. Because the word yoga actually translates to mean to yoke, which is to make whole, right? So healing, another word for healing is actually wholeness. And so this feeling of wholeness means that nothing is lacking and that nothing is broken, right? So if we understand the word of the meaning of the word wholeness, nothing is broken, nothing is lacking. But most of the time when we're in pain and suffering, it feels like something is lacking and something is broken. So to get back to yoga is to get back to wholeness, is to get to the healing place where nothing is lacking, nothing is broken, and that you are interconnected to everything. And that is a very beautiful place to be. And that's what I call the flow state. So my school that I have, it's called Flow State Institute, but it's truly, flow state is a state of being where you're feeling like everything is good, like interconnected to the universe. There is flow. And even from the ancient Eastern tradition of Taoism, which is another philosophy that I studied over my whole life, the Taoism, the idea of the Tao is that everything, there is this thing that is existence, and it is everythingness. And some religions will call that God. But there are different words for this, but it is this existential experience, spiritual experience of everything existing in this present moment. And we are one with that. We are an extension of that. And so to really experience yoga is to experience this fullness, this wholeness, this infinite potential and limitless support and love of the universe streaming to us and through us as us. And from there, whatever you're here to do as a life purpose will come, and the support will be there. and the guidance will be there, and the joy of the journey will be there. So that's really when, wondering like, how will yoga help me? I mean, yeah, and it will heal your back pain, but that's all part of it.
Well, it's fascinating because again, I consider myself, I do yoga at least once a week, but I've never heard it broken down this way where, look, meditation, mindfulness, being in the present moment, I call it energy. As you said, there's many, whether it's God, universe, whatever you call it, this energy is my terminology, but I've never actually pieced it all together with yoga. And I do it at least once a week, which I know is not a lot probably to someone like yourself, but I've never considered yoga anything but the physical act. Why was that separated as it was brought to the West? Or maybe it is separated in the East. I don't know. But again, I've spent time in Thailand. I've spent time over there where they do a fair amount of it. I still think of meditation, or I always have, as, okay, that's one thing over here. And I have my own practice. Then I have being present, which again, that's something I try to do all the time. But putting it all together with these 8 limbs, that's the first time I've ever really heard it put that way. Why has it been separated? I'm just curious if you know that.
That's such a great question. And I've actually observed this in the world for, I've been teaching for 17 years, practicing for my whole life, and I've observed it. I think what I've come to understand is that there are entry points on the path to, we'll call it enlightenment or whatever you want to call it, which is just the understanding of everything, right? So if you could say there's a spectrum between being completely ignorant and knowing nothing, and then enlightened, which is the access of all information and intelligence, there's a spectrum there. And most people are more at the beginner side of that journey. Not to say there's no right or wrong here. It's just where the entry point is. So it's a lot more relatable, the physical, because it's something you can touch, you can see it, and it feels real. So I feel people come in through the physical practice as an entry point because it's something that they can feel and they can touch and but once you get in the door, we call it like a gateway drug. It's like once you get in the door, then you start, you connect to your breath, you connect to the present moment, you connect to the beauty of life, you connect to an energy that feels bigger than yourself, and you start to really feel that there's something beyond that physical. And then I feel like that's where people like yourself, for example, would be led to having a meditation practice or having a mindfulness lifestyle. But like generally that's the second step, right? So it's like, okay, let's think of it as school, right? So you have kindergarten, then you have first grade, second, then you go all the way, you graduate high school, now you have college, and then you go on and on. That's the same with all of the teachings, whatever you're going to learn, right? So in this specific path, we'll call it, which I would say the path of enlightenment, or, the path of awakening, the path of consciousness, we can call it, but I like to call it the path of yoga as well. This path, whatever you want to call it, there are stages. And so it tends to be that entry point is the physical. Another reason is because the ego is very identified with the physical realm. So it's very easy to get interested to start a physical practice because you want your body to be healthy, you want your body to be fit and flexible, and also prevents a lot of pain and from back pain and neck pain. So it starts to heal all these like physical ailments, and then you start to go deeper and you can experience the other deeper layers of consciousness that are able to be impacted from the practice. I feel like it's just like an entry point. It's kind of like you step into kindergarten, you're not going to stay there forever, but you're going to learn a lot there. But the difference is in the yoga path, I really believe people should do the physical practice their whole life. There is tremendous benefits for the physical practice of yoga, for the asanas, for your whole life. And the people that sometimes people get very spiritual and then they want to like move beyond the body, which is a mistake because you're never going to move beyond your body until you leave your body, like until you die, right? So literally you have to maintain the temple. And that's why yoga is such a complete system, because you maintain the physical, the mental, the emotional, you have that spiritual component and this holistic community around it. And so it's just a very complete system. And I feel in the whole world, there's no other system that was developed in this way that's as complete, and that's been thousands of years and now proven even by Harvard. So you can tell I'm pretty passionate, but does that answer your question?
Yeah, I mean, look, I feel like maybe I'm in 3rd or 4th grade and I got a long way to go, but here's the great news. I get to learn a lot along that path. It's already rewarded me personally so much in the way I feel, and for my mind, my body, and my soul. So that's yes, I think you answered my question. I got a ways to go, which is awesome, because I don't think it's ever ending. It's something, enlightenment is not something I think I'll ever achieve, nor do I think I even grasp the concept. But I have to ask you unless you have a comment on that, but
I do want to say something. I think it's important, because I had a feeling from that someone might be listening and feel, oh, I'm in 3rd grade, I'm in 1st grade. I don't ever want people to think of it that way. It's just, I use those as like kind of analogy just to help understand, but it's not about that at all. At any moment, we have access to the infinite intelligence of the source of life and the universe. So it's not like, oh, I have to go through 12 grades and then the next thing. There's no linear time. That's just a construct that we have created in this 3D realm to be able to figure life out. We have created time, but we can at any moment, let's say, skip ahead a couple of grades. You know what I mean? You can go from kindergarten to graduate school in a year. It's not about a timeline where you would feel, oh, I'm behind, or these people are ahead. But I do think that it can be very inspiring to know that there's more to grow. And that, like you said, that it's a never-ending journey. And that, yes, you could get to a field of enlightenment where you do feel like you're not suffering in your life anymore and things are just always in the flow. But even from there, there's more to grow. And so that is the beauty of the experience of life, is that we're here to continuously evolve, expand, and grow. And so I just wanted to mention that so that anybody who would be listening wouldn't feel like, oh, I'm in the kindergarten, and then feel bad, because that's just the ego mind that wants to put ourselves in a box. But you're not in a box. There's no box.
No, I appreciate you saying, look, I'm a passionate learner. I love learning new things. So it actually excited me to be like, you got a long way to go, man.
Okay.
Which is awesome for me, because again, it's already been so fulfilling for me and is on a daily basis. It's part of my everyday routine that I do. And if I don't, I don't feel right. Not yoga specifically, but meditation. Again, that's how I kind of break it down. I love the name, the Flow State Institute. The state of flow is one of the peak performance, is what I look at it, for a human being. So my question is, A, great job naming it, but B, how do we get to that flow state? If that's really my definition of it, how does one find that in a faster way so that they can feel where it's so effortless? You're going through something and it feels like, man, I'm really performing at a huge level and I don't even realize it. It's just something that's happening. That's my understanding of flow state. Is that your definition of kind of what you're looking for?
Yeah, it's a state. Exactly. So I 100% agree. And that's how I came up with the name for my school, actually, Flow State Institute. Actually, it came from this university contacted me about 6 or 7 years ago. And they had this PhD professor there. She had been following my work for several years. And she asked me if I would come over to England and do a research with them at Warwick University with the, because they focus on research in the corporate sort of side of things. So they wanted to show how these practices help people in a corporate setting to improve their creativity, productivity, health, and well-being. And then overall, obviously, the profitability would improve. So this is like the flow state of a company, the flow state of the employees, the flow state of the C-suite. Everybody can benefit if people are in flow, right? And then also the opposite, like when people aren't in flow, you have a lot of people sick and conflict, and so like you want to get rid of that as much as possible. So it's like, so she flew me over to England, but I was like, I wanted to bring Dr. Khalsa from Harvard, because he'd been doing 20 years of research about this already. So we flew him over and I flew over, and we did like a week research thing at the university in Warwick in England. And from there, I realized that's what it had been all the time. Like, we use the word yoga, but like really what we're aiming for is this state. We want to get into a certain state. And I would always call it yoga, like I described earlier, like this state of, interconnectedness and this wholeness. But an English word that kind of sums it up, I feel, is this state of flow, right? So we're looking for or aiming for accessing this state, flow state, through life, right? In every way. Like you want that in your business, you want that in your health, you want that in your career, in your friends, your family, your romantic life. You just want this flow, right? So in the end of the day, I started to really see that there are certain practices that will get you there faster, right? And then there are certain things that take time. But I started to write the book. Actually, the book will be coming out hopefully in the next year or so. But the flow state book, what I decided to focus on is universal, the like alignment with the universe. Because the universe, like we were talking about earlier, the Taoism perspective is that the universe is flow. So the only thing that would prevent us from being in flow is not being in alignment with the universe. And so in order to be in flow, because we're already like naturally, just like we're already naturally enlightened, we're already naturally bliss, we're already naturally flow. So the only thing that prevents us from experiencing that is when we're out of alignment. So the universal laws of alignment is what I started to focus on. And so the flow state book will have 22 universal laws. So some of these laws, for example, I mean, one of them got very famous by the movie The Secret, the law of attraction. Like these universal laws, they're irrefutable. There's like, for example, the law of abundance, the law of love, the law of unconditional love, the law of oneness. Like these ideas of knowing that when you're in alignment with these energies, your life is flow. When you're not in alignment, you have conflict and resistance. And that's just the universe letting you know you're out of alignment. So it's not like a punishment, but it's like, okay, there's a block here. What's the block? We'll look for the alignment. Oh, I have a conflict. Oh, I have even some ancestral trauma I need to heal, or I have this or that. But you got to just look within. And that's why meditation is so powerful. It gives you the tool to look within. And you're looking within and you say, oh, I have this conflict that was never resolved with my mother. And I need to deal with, you have to like actually deal with your stuff. You can't just put it in a closet inside of your mind and think it'll go away. It keeps resurfacing in the form of problems until you deal with it. And then once you've truly healed something, resolved an old story, an old trauma, whatever you want to call that, once you've resolved it, it's literally like, did you ever play the game Tetris? You remember that game?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was addicted to Tetris when I was in high school. It was so funny. But anyway, I think it taught me a lot. And one of the things that I remember from Tetris is, when you get all the little things lined up, the whole line disappears. Remember that? And then you get to the next level. So this is like my spiritual metaphor for like how to clear your broken links in your consciousness. Literally, you have to get all the way, everything has to be in alignment and you have to go all the way to the core. But once you get to the core of that root problem, the whole problem goes away in every area of your life. And so this is important, it's like, oh, you can't just snap your finger, oh, now I'm in flow. But the nice thing is, if you do practice yoga and meditation, it makes you see from the observer perspective, see the truth of your life. And you go, oh, wow, if I really look at my life and I'm not kind of like hiding from my truth, right? Because that's what sometimes you'd be like, oh, everything's perfect. And it's not. But if I'm not hiding from my truth and I'm just looking at it as it is, the truth of it, I can see I need to work there. I need to do some work there. I need to heal that. And then as we forgive and love and heal all the old stories, that's where we create flow, because the universe is our true nature. Like we are one with the universe. So we just have to like heal all of these broken links is how I like to think of it. It reminds me of like, I always think of like the internet, sometimes you have a broken link, you try to click the link and it goes nowhere. You got to heal any broken links in your consciousness. And that's the key.
Well, I imagine that's why people really they're attracted to the way you describe these things. You take it from, okay, this is very, again, I'll call it Eastern, where it's you're talking about something with energy, and then you're like, here's the best way with Tetris. That's just a cool way to really bring that all together, where it's like, okay, I play Tetris, that makes some sense, versus some chakra that we need to fix over here, and people are like, what the hell is a chakra? So I think that's incredible. You're also a walking example. If anybody's watching this video, you are in a place where it's busy and you're not affected by it. It's just, you're in the moment. So it's really cool to watch. I want to shift gears just a little bit, because I know you have something that you're working on, and that's called Children Are the Future. You mentioned your own childhood traumas and some of the healing that you've done through this work. So talk to me about Children of the Future. What are you working on?
Okay, I really believe everything in my life has literally led to this, so I would say it's my actual purpose of life, which is really interesting because, I thought I knew what my purpose of life was before this. So who knows, maybe eventually in 20 years, I'll have an evolved state of it. But anyway, basically the idea is that the words, they say the whole message. Children are the future. Now, we kind of know that, right? Like, if children are little right now, one day they will be the adults running the world, right? So, but people don't really realize right now, actually, the Surgeon General of the US recently declared children's mental health a national emergency crisis, that over 50% of children have mental disorders and or have contemplated suicide. And this was like before the pandemic. People don't realize, okay? And then on top of it, the school teachers are so burned out that over 53% of school teachers want to quit the profession. That was before the pandemic. So if you can think of children being the future, but that's where they currently are at in their mental, emotional well-being and their teachers, we have a crisis. And nobody's talking about it, because the only thing anybody wants to talk about is, there's other problems on the world, right? There's like the environmental crisis, which is a huge one. Now we have a war in Ukraine. And then the pandemic has consumed everybody's life for 2 years. But the future of all humanity is currently wanting to kill itself. This is a problem. So I feel I have the solution. I know I have the solutions. And it's because even when I started my career, I was working with children. I was working actually in Boca and in Coral Springs and all around there, teaching children yoga and meditation in the schools. But it was predominantly back then very much well received in the private schools, because those children, their parents are already like meditating and doing yoga and they have a lot of money. But I started to realize that it's the children in the lower socioeconomic schools that need it the most and can't afford it. And their parents would never think to send their kids to yoga, because they're like trying to scrape by and they're like selling drugs on the street. So we have literally millions of children, 50 million children in America actually in the school system, and 3.6 million school teachers that are in this crisis. And so what we're doing now is we put together this huge program combining 3 different nonprofits. One of them is my school, the Flow State Institute. We certify yoga and meditation teachers. And then we have another one called Yoga for Youth. They have been teaching yoga in the school system since 1998 in partnership with Dr. Khalsa from Harvard. And then we also have another one called Choose Love Foundation, which is really close to my heart. They teach emotional intelligence skills. The woman who started that foundation, her son, 6 years old, went to school one day. One of his classmates came to school with a gun and killed him and 12 of his friends. And the woman was so grief-stricken, she decided to channel her sadness into something that can help the world. And she started this foundation, which teaches emotional intelligence skills to children in the school. So basically, between the Choose Love Foundation, Yoga for Youth, and the Flow State Institute, we created this program called Children of the Future. And we are actively currently getting this program into the school systems to certify and train the school teachers. Because I was like, okay, it's not very efficient to train teachers outside of the school and bring them in, because it's costly and it's inefficient. But if you train the school teachers who are already teaching these children, and now it's going to heal their burnout, it's going to bring them back to their passion of being a teacher. It's going to help the children in tremendous ways already, but then they're going to teach these practices in the classroom to the children, and it solves all the problems. And so we've been actively focused on this launch where we've already been in like thousands of schools, but we want to get this in all 130,000 schools in America. There's, like I said, 3.6 million teachers. It's a huge initiative. At least half, if not 80% of them are lower socioeconomic schools. So we really are also actively welcoming philanthropic contributions so that we can provide scholarships to those teachers that couldn't afford it, perhaps. But anyway, so this is the Children of the Future. We have a number of initiatives. We're going to be doing a documentary film. And then we have the Harvard Research Project that's going to be a 3-year research study in a 16 school district in Maryland. And we have a big event coming up in June in Miami Beach, which is called the Flow State Festival. We're going to have a TEDx event, and 33% of the ticket sales are going to Children of the Future as well. So doing lots of things. But anyway, that's my passion right now.
Well, it's a huge initiative that you're taking on. I'm curious, would it be part of the curriculum where these teachers would be, again, whether it's yoga or meditation with the kiddos, that they take time in the day, whether it's at their desk or maybe even where they get to go to the gym or something? Is that the idea where they get to practice it that way? And I'm just curious because I put myself back in school or even my kids. I would love for them to do it. Now they do it at my kid's school as part of meditation, as part of what he has to do. Unfortunately, he looks at it that way. I love it. But is that
in Boca? Your kids are in school in Boca?
Yeah, they are.
See, that's what it is. It's like it's already in some schools that are like those higher, socioeconomic groups. And I love that. It makes me, and I know the kids are like, oh, I have to do this. The way I think would be the most successful implementation, to tell you the truth, is 2 things. First of all, you implement small segments into the day. So instead of like, oh, I have to go to this hour-long thing, because kids have a very short attention span. So to go like an hour, I mean, eventually they should, but it's not really the most effective. So I think like 10 minutes in the morning, you start the morning with a little breath work, a little meditation, a little bit of affirmations on what they're grateful for, just introducing things, but in a bite-sized portion for children, like 10 minutes in the morning. And then before you have to do an exam, they should do a little meditation and breath and movement. And then like, for example, at the end of the day, like various times where they can do 5 to 10 minute sections instead of you have a 1 hour once a week, because both are fine, but I think they're going to get more benefit and they're going to actually enjoy it more when it's not like, oh, an obligation, but it's actually something that breaks up the day and that they start to enjoy. And then they can implement it into their lifestyle outside of school. They're like, oh yeah, I'm feeling anxious. Let me do this breath that I learned in class and things like that. And then I think the other implementation that would be very effective would be if they would add it as a secondary or in addition to or in replacement of general PE, because the physical practice of yoga is non-competitive. So one of the problems with the PE environment, I remember as a kid, I don't know if you were like, I was always this tiny little, I'm very petite. So I was always like not picked for the kickball team. So it was very bad for my self-esteem, And I was like, sometimes the PE is not good for kids' self-esteem. I mean, sometimes it's good for healthy things that are happening in there, but sometimes it's very competitive. So yoga is a non-competitive movement practice that's very healthy for all of your organs, your joints, your muscles. It's very flexible. It helps you to become flexible and strong and balanced. It's a very good physical practice as well. So I would like to see eventually that it would be added as an additional part of the PE curriculum eventually. But I think this beginning stage, it just makes the most sense where they just do like shorter segments throughout the day in the classroom.
Yeah, no. And I think it's smart for anybody listening. It's a good idea for all of us. And here's my example. For years, I would have meditate for 10 minutes. That was on my goal. Now, if for whatever reason I chose not to have 10 minutes, I just wouldn't do it, which is asinine when you think of that out loud. And now for me, I meditate all the time. It's just a moment where I'll stop, be present, breathe, and I have my techniques that I use. But anybody listening, if you're like, oh, I have to sit cross-legged, do it. No, you don't. There's so many different ways. And maybe you can speak to that a little bit, Dashama, where people can incorporate this. I know I do it while driving because one of my triggers is when people are driving slow in the fast lane. I don't like it about myself, but it bothers me. And so I constantly am doing these meditations, these mini meditations, where I look at them at, so I don't react, rather I respond. And I'm just like, okay, they're having a bad day. They didn't mean to cut me off, whatever. Do you have any thoughts around that for people that are like, you know what, I do want to get started. Where do I even go?
Absolutely. Yeah, I love that. That's exactly what most people have, that same issue. Oh, I don't have 5 or 10 minutes. I'm not going to do anything. That's why I think 1 minute is good. Just do something, like I have an app, it's called the Flow State. You can get it in the App Store for free. There's certain practices. Sometimes in the beginning, it's really beneficial if you listen to guided meditations. I think that because then it feels like you don't have to figure out what you do, because most people, it's very difficult to know how to meditate. So they sit there and they're like, am I even doing it? Like, is this working? But if you do guided meditations in the beginning, and or something else that really helps, my brother-in-law had anxiety really bad, and he kept getting like high blood pressure because his anxiety, he was like measuring his blood pressure every 5 minutes, and then his blood pressure would go up because he was getting anxiety about it going up. So anyway, I showed him binaural beats, which is a frequency music that you can listen to. You put the earbuds in, and it just, what I love about binaural beats is that it has 2 different frequencies, but when it meets in the middle, it puts your brain into one really good, clear space. There's even a frequency called flow. There's flow, and then there's like the alpha. So they're all the different brainwave states. You could put yourself into any brainwave state that you want. If you want to be an alpha, if you're in productivity, if you're an athlete, you want to be an alpha. If you want to be in flow, you're going to be in that frequency. If you want to go into sleep, you're going to go theta. So there's different frequencies. You can actually literally just listen to music, put your brain into a frequency, and just relax for a bit. You can lay down, you can breathe. So it doesn't have to be this formal thing. Now, once you get more into it, yeah, you're going to explore the formal practice of meditation through, like you said, sitting cross-legged, because there's a tremendous benefit to that. But in the beginning, I always encourage people to find the form of meditation that resonates with them, that they love, so they want to keep doing it. And then they want to actually prioritize it and make time for it. So if you love your meditation, you're going to be like, I have to do my meditation. It's 30 minutes in the morning. That's a good place to be with it. But in the beginning, if you're making excuses, it means that you haven't found a form of meditation that you love yet. So you have to find that. Even some people, honestly, I'll give you a few examples. There's many forms of meditation. Most people don't know this. One form of meditation is breath work. One form is what I was saying with the frequency music. Another form is actually love making. You don't realize, but actually, if you have a partner in your life, we call this tantra in the yogic tradition, tantra. If you can breathe and connect and be present while you're being intimate with your partner, that is a form of meditation. Another one is being grateful. Another one is prayer. Another one is communion with nature, literally just walking outside, walking meditation, just not on your phone though. You have to be in the presence of your breath, then you're meditating. If you're just on your phone, you're not. Okay. But anyway, and another one, dancing meditation, literally just putting on music and jamming out to your favorite song for 5 minutes. So there's so many ways that you can meditate, because meditation is literally just a divine state of presence with your breath and with the moment. And so however and whatever gets you there is wonderful. And then from there, you're going to go on, kind of like earlier we talked about, there's the kindergarten and then there's all the way to the master level. Master level is you don't even need to do meditation because you are constantly in a meditative state, or we could call that in flow state. So if you're in flow state already, do you need to sit to meditate? Not really. But at the same time, there's even meditations that you could do, even if you're enlightened, even if you're in flow state, that will, for example, you're sitting there, but then maybe you're going to visualize something that you want to bring into your reality. So you put it into your mind while you're sitting, while you're breathing, while you're present. You see it, you feel it, you know it's happening, it's already done. You call it in, and then boom, you let it go. And then all of a sudden, now you just manifested what you were trying to call in. So that's another form of meditation. So as you can see, there's such a variety of forms of meditation. So I like to encourage people to find the one that really resonates in the beginning. And then you can explore more. I love them all. I teach them all, but in the beginning, find something that you really get excited about. And then you don't go, oh, I don't have 5 minutes, forget it. You prioritize. You want to do 2 hours because you love it so much. You know what I'm saying?
I do. And it sounds like good news, listeners. You're probably in a divine state of presence, is what she said, more often than you think. So you're actually meditating more frequently than you probably realize. So, Mom, good news. All those times I'm trying to have you sit down, do guided meditation. You're already doing it when we were dancing as kids growing up and all this fun stuff. I want to ask a totally different question, because clearly you've taken something you're passionate about. You've done extremely well getting it to the world. And so you've taken this practice that so many people need to hear about, and you've developed a really thriving business because you're helping so many, of course. But I'm just curious. You talked about, I think of the law of attraction as what you kind of brought to the forefront, and you manifested it. Talk to me about how you were able to do it, because again, younger lady, that's just, you've crushed it, and you continue to be asked to be sent around the world to help people understand. How can others really take some of the practices, the ideas that you've done, and use it in their own business? Because I have a lot of entrepreneurs listening to this, and I'm sure they're going, well, I want to do what Dashama's doing. That's awesome. So do you have any thoughts around that?
Absolutely. It's a great question. I want to get a little more clear on the question, though. I want to ask you, is the question, how can they manifest their dream, or how can they do what I did? Like, how can they teach yoga too? Like, do they teach meditation, or is it just whatever they want to do? How can they take it out there and make it successful?
Correct. The more of taking their dream, their ideas, their business, and really letting it, flourish and thrive, because clearly you've done that in your own world, and you help people over in England. You talked about going over there and helping them with that. And so this flow state, how can more people take their own business or dream and really bring it to what they want it to be?
That's a great question. Actually, I created a whole program. It's called the Master Business Academy, and I include it in my training that I do for the yoga teachers, because that was one of the things that I found over, I've been certifying teachers for 12 years around the world. And I was like, most people don't understand how to do business. So it's a funny thing, because I don't even think of it as business, but it is. It's business. Like, okay, so there's a word for it, business. But what it really is how do you take what you're passionate about and make a life out of that? Now, there's one part of it that most people don't understand, which I really believe. Now, this could be my own personal opinion, but I believe if something is your life purpose, like if this is what you were born to do, the universe, we call it divine providence, the universe will literally lay out a red carpet for you, and all the support will line up. But if you're on the wrong path, it won't. And I think that this is important, because I've had different times when I was trying, even within this career, when I was trying one way, like a direction that I felt I wanted to go, later realizing it was my ego that wanted to go that direction, and it wasn't my soul, it wasn't my purpose, but I needed to learn some deep, hard lessons by going the wrong way. So you're swimming upstream, you're fighting the current, and you're wondering, why is this not working? So I truly believe, if you are on the right path and you are in alignment with the universe and you are from the pure intention to serve, you will always be supported, and literally miracles will continuously show up to prove that to you and to remind you and to encourage to continue to go in that direction. But if you're going on the wrong path, then it's going to be block after block, and the flow is not going anywhere, and you're kind of wondering, what is going on here? Why all the problems, right? And so that, to me, is how I try to listen to the guidance of the universe. And that guidance comes in the form of many things: people, opportunities, experiences that are showing that we're either going on the right path or not. But the other deeper part, like I said, has to be that intention, the intention to serve, not the intention to serve oneself and have a whatever Rolls Royce in the garage. That intention will not get you far. The intention is to serve, to make an impact, to help others. And by virtue of that, I really believe, because we're one with the source of life. We are God in human form. So when you line up with that energy, you're literally just lining up with God, because that's God's energy. God always wants to serve. God doesn't sit there like, I need 2 more Rolls Royces in the garage. It doesn't, there's no energy of that. That is the ego mind. So we get out of the ego into the soul, into the heart, into the service, and then ask in our meditations. I love meditations. Ask the source guidance, what is the best path for me to serve? How can I make the greatest possible impact with my life and my energy? And show me who I need to align with, or what I must do, what actions I must take to get to that. Because you have to take action. And that's the other part. Some people think like the law of attraction, it was like, oh, you just believe and receive and it comes. I don't know, because for me, I have had moments like that where I did nothing and something came and I was like, wow, that was amazing. But for the most part, you do need to take action, and that action is divinely guided action. You should be action that you enjoy. Now, if you're doing a lot of actions that you hate, that's also a block to the flow, because the universe is like energy, right? Everything's energy. So if you're like, man, I hate doing all these things, but I have to do these things because I need to get to this other place, it doesn't work. So what you have to do is find people that like doing the things that you hate doing and outsource those things. Otherwise, you're never going to get there, even if you're doing the divine work and with the intention to serve and with the impact at your hearts and having the right, path even. But if you're doing all the things that you hate doing, you're sitting there in a field of negative energy of hate this, hate the technology, hate this. You're not going to feel flow. You're not going to feel joy. You're not going to enjoy the journey, and you're not going to have the success. So it has to be also that you can't be doing all the things that you hate doing. You have to outsource those. And that's difficult because you have to upgrade the consciousness of being an entrepreneur, being a business owner instead of a solopreneur that does it all, which I've done, so I know. And then once you get to a point where you can find people that are really good and that you can trust them, all of a sudden you realize, oh my God, why was I doing those things all that time? Like I wasn't even good at them hardly. And I wasted all my good energy, creative energy, doing the tedious tasks that I was hating to do. And it was blocking the flow. And so things weren't growing as fast as they could have. Once you find people that can do the things that you don't like to do, and they love to do it, you pay them, all of a sudden exponential, lots of joy opens up, a lot of opportunities flow into the joy energy. And then it's like a perpetual flow cycle. So that's kind of how I see it. I mean, it's not like, oh, I'm just going to give you this 5-minute, pep talk and you're going to go out there and do it. But there is something that will click inside, I feel like, for people when they realize they're either on the right path or they're not. And then once they know that they are, like if you know that you're on the right path, then it's just a matter of setting yourself up with the right systems. And that's the difference between the billionaires and the people that are just scraping by, is the people that are at the highest level serving have really good systems and have really good leverage, meaning they have people doing all the things so that they don't have to do all those things that they don't want to do. And they only position themselves for the highest value tasks of things that they enjoy. Am I right?
Oh, you're spot on. Like that was 5 minutes or so of brilliance when it comes to business. So I'm so glad I asked and you went down that. That was brilliant. I just, you've offered so much. I just looked at the clock. I can't believe it's been this long already. Where can people connect with you, Dashama? You bring so much to the world. You're putting so much great out there. You're literally serving our future, the children. So where can people connect with you?
Thank you so much. Yeah, I have social media everywhere. I'm on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook. My name is Dashama. All my platforms are verified. You can see me there. My website, you can go to childfuture.org. If you know any philanthropists or any school administrators, anybody that could be, in some way involved, we're very, very happy, open, and receptive. And then my contact information is also at childfuture.org. Oh, there's another dog. Like, this is my best friend. Then another dog just came up and she was like, oh, Muffy, no, baby. Okay, she's signaling she wants to play.
I think
Anyways,
it's time. Yeah. Well, here, I will end it this way and just say thank you so much for being here. You guys go check out what Dashama's doing. You're bringing a lot of love to the world, and you're helping a lot of people. So I greatly appreciate you taking the time today and everything that you're doing.
thank you so much. Very nice to connect with you as well. Have a beautiful, blessed day.
Thank you. Well, you guys, look, there's so many great things she talked about. We will link all of these places you can connect with her in the show notes. So go do it. And I want you to remember your mindset matters. And we literally touched on a lot of your mindset through these various things with yoga. So check her out. I appreciate you guys. Have an awesome week. We'll talk to you next week. Thank you so much for listening. If this content is delivering value to you, please make sure to subscribe, rate, and review us. That helps us build this community, and that is what we are all about. Building this community as big as we can, helping as many people as we can, and deliver as much value as possible. Be sure to head over to letsgowinpodcast.com for information on my coaching courses, and make sure to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn at Let's Go Win 365. Let's go win and transcend in life.
This is the Let's Go Win podcast with your host, J.M. Ryerson.